I know, I think we last talked about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and the refugee crisis was absolutely at its most poignant in a sense. Have things settled down a bit?
They have and they haven't. I think when we last spoke, I talked about the situation at the border as being a kind of controlled chaos. I think it's now controlled. The huge army of volunteers, private citizens that were driving to the border, I was one of them, to pick people up and bring them back, has mostly been replaced now by the effort of the government and the local government. So Poland as a country has got its act together. But of course, these people have to go somewhere. And you won't see tents and rows of tents anywhere in Poland because the vast majority of these millions of Ukrainian women and children are staying in people's houses. So I think it's changed quite a bit, but I walked out in the street, 3 cars in the 20 cars outside with Ukrainian number plates. There's Ukrainian flags on the building opposite. The war is still very, very present on Polish streets and in Polish minds.
You know, Poland's physically a big country. It's got a big hinterland. Is that where they're heading, or are they, as is the way often when you get diasporas forming, people go where somebody they know or a cousin is, and then you get these sort of incremental build up around one town, one community, one city. Is probably quite early for that to be happening, I imagine.
Well, many people think the Polish people aren't very friendly to foreigners, but the simple fact is that they'd already taken in well over 1 million Ukrainians before this war began. And Poland had issued visa-free travel to Ukrainian people, and I worked with a lot of Ukrainian people who came to Poland. So the people who've stayed, quite a lot of them already have a family member here. Many of the people who stayed with me have gone on to family members, some over to Germany, some to Spain, some to the west of Poland. So it depends on their individual circumstances. But there are just a vast number of people who are, frankly speaking, Colin, they don't want to be here. They don't want to be anywhere. They don't want to come to the UK. They just want to go home.
But when we see the fallen masonry, the rubble, the wrecked roads, the infrastructure shattered, the power that's not going to work for years, the billions that it's going to cost to rebuild that country, where are the jobs going to be? I mean, you can see why women and children will want to go back, be reunited with their men folk. It's a perfectly understandable, natural impulse. But you wonder really whether there are going to be the jobs and the work and the money to sustain them.
Oh, that is an interesting question. And you're quite right to say, Colin, that people have said, hang on a second, this is all very well and fine. What are we going to do long term? I have to tell you, having met these people, I think these people would be a credit to any workforce, any of them. These are teachers, the people who are in my house today. One's an experienced teacher, the other's an experienced architect. And you know what? We went onto a Polish website and there's several hundred Polish architecture companies offering people like her work. So just like in the UK, finding good workers is kind of tough.
Yeah.
There's 1.5 million jobs in the UK. There's millions of jobs in Poland. And I think actually their integration in Poland will be quite good for one simple reason. They are in many respects very similar to Polish people. The food is similar. I can speak to Ukrainians and kind of in a gabbled way work out what on earth is going on. I was playing with a Ukrainian child, 2 years old. We were getting on like a house on fire. So the overall story of their integration, I think, will be good, but there'll certainly be bumps along the road. And yeah, many of them are in limbo. I mean, they're saying to me, they don't really want to start a job here. They don't want to let an employer down. They don't want to sign a lease on a flat or an apartment if in 2 months' time they can go back. And of course, they thought those peace deals would come through. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, you put your finger on exactly the right point, Patrick, which is the time factor. If you look at the graph, it's the numbers here, but it's the time on the bottom, isn't it? If it goes on for months, if it goes on for years, then some of those temporary arrangements take on a feel of permanence, and the idea of where home actually is begins to mutate and change.
Yes, you're right. And of course, who knows that better than Poland? I mean, Colin, as you know well, 1 in every 5 Polish people were killed in the Second World War. The other lot were robbed and injured and cast aside from their country, never to come back. So we don't know. And obviously, I feel terribly sorry for all of these people. The murders of these civilians is breaking their hearts. Like I was speaking to a Ukrainian friend of mine, Anastasia, this morning, and she just can't talk about it. So these people are going through a trauma, and it's a trauma which is it's evolving because now, as you say, they're stuck here. They're stuck in this limbo land. They are these refugees, people without a state. And I feel terribly sorry for them for that reason that, of course, you have to also move on. And we're now in this horrible period where the shock of the war has worn off. And they are stuck waiting for news about their loved ones. We're all waiting to find out what's going to happen in this war. And of course, unfortunately, there's only one person really who can decide that.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.